powerful British Empire. We already glanced in the earlier remarks from this dais Thoreau's contribution to world thought in his book Walden. And the stress then was simplify. In fact, Thoreau uses the word 3 times: simplify, simplify, simplify. And as many of you know, when the Round Table Conference was held in London, Mahatma Gandhi was invited, and as usual, he went in his loincloth and his lathi, and King George V was, of course, clad in all his regalia, whatever he used to wear, the emperors. And the reporter asked Mahatma Gandhi, "Weren't you embarrassed to be appearing before the emperor clad in a loincloth?" He said, "No, I was not. The emperor was wearing enough clothes for both of us." So that was his riposte. So I think we can all see, ladies and gentlemen, that Mahatma Gandhi also had, like Thoreau, a very fine streak of humor in his temperament. And not only a fine streak of humor, but also the ability to think fast and immediately give a fitting reply, which was ironic, sarcastic, and also a kind of rebuke that you seem to think that all this regalia and all this pomposity is going to really influence us and dominate us. We will see to it that ultimately all these are discarded. And then, of course, as all of us know, Mahatma Gandhi launched his great campaign against the import of foreign cloths. And here I refer to Manohar Mangolkar's book, A Bend in the Ganges, which I think personally is one of the best books on the Indian freedom struggle. And I'm rather surprised that in many universities, I don't know, even in Saurashtra University, Professor Mehta, whether Mangolkar's book is prescribed. It is not prescribed in Delhi University. You remember, some of you may remember, the opening sentence of the book is that they were burning their clothes. There's a huge bonfire. And all those who were wearing imported cloth, they were throwing their garments into the fire and burning them. A very striking theatrical scene. Thoreau, of course, was equally intrepid and dramatic in his gestures. John Brown, you all, many of you may be knowing the name John Brown. He was an abolitionist, that is, determined to abolish slavery. And he spoke fearlessly on the immoral and absolutely sacrilegious institution of slavery, as a result of which he was arrested and hanged. And one of the very popular folk songs in America, as some of you will be knowing, is John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on to heaven. His soul goes marching on to heaven. Thoreau was absolutely fearless, and he determined to give a lecture, public lecture, in condemnation of the execution of John Brown. So he went to the authorities, asked him for permission to give the public lecture, and the permission was denied for obvious reasons. Thoreau himself went and rang the bell in defiance of the order, rang the bell to summon an audience. Danger, of course, was to Thoreau that he would also be arrested and hanged like John Brown. But fortunately, the authorities realized that a man with the intellectual and moral stature of Thoreau, if this was done to him, it would certainly perhaps cause a conflagration. As some of you may be knowing, Thoreau spent a night in jail because he refused to pay his tax. And while he was in the jail, looking out through the iron bars, Emerson walked past. And Emerson asked Thoreau, he says, "Why are you in jail?" And Thoreau replied and said, Emerson, why are you not in jail? Well, you see, this was the caliber of Thoreau. Like Mahatma Gandhi, ability to think on his feet and give an answer, a short, terse answer, which contained a whole philosophy. Why are you not in jail? So, in 3 or 4 words, notice how it's a punch line like that, which knocks out the opponent and knocks us out too. Why are we not in jail if there is any offensive practice against us, against the community, against the country? What steps do we take? Do we merely sit back and deplore it in our minds, or do we speak out as Thoreau did? I'd like to move on to the fact, and I think Professor Prashant Sinha is going to enlighten us on this in much greater detail than I will here. But did Thoreau have any precedent for this step that he took? Yes, all of you will remember Sophocles' play Antigone, where, as you recall, she decides to bury her brother, Polynices, in spite of the order that his body must remain unburied and be eaten by the wild animals. And there were others too, who Bronson Alcott was one, that's one named William Lloyd Garrison. I won't go into details because those are in the essay which has been published. But my question here, ladies and gentlemen, is what is it that immortalizes an act? An act in itself can be very important, like Thoreau's refusal to pay his tax. But what makes it immortal? What makes it so important that we are sitting today and devoting a whole day to a seminar which has taken up so much of energy of Dr. Nagar and his team, the logistics, organizing it? What is it that makes such events historical? The answer, I think all of us will agree, is the writer. The writer does that. It is the writer who writes. Thoreau writes his essay, Civil Disobedience. He writes the book, Walden. Shakespeare writes Julius Caesar. And of course, Et tu, Brute, as we all remember, becomes a line that is in a way branded into our minds. The assassination of Julius Caesar by Brutus. Or the lines from Yeats that I've just quoted, how but in custom and in ceremony are innocence and beauty born. So here I think, ladies and gentlemen, is a very important ingredient of the kind of deliberations that we are going to have today as to how important it is for the writer, the author, to be able to capture these historical moments in language. Think of the French Revolution. What made it such a big milestone in history? The event, yes, certainly. But perhaps Carlyle's The French Revolution, Thomas Carlyle's book, which many of you in later years will perhaps read and study. I then go over briefly, was Thoreau's essay the starting point for Mahatma Gandhi, or did he launch his movement and then discover Thoreau? My attempt here is to show that that was what happened. He had already launched his movement, and then he discovered Thoreau, and was delighted to find that what he was attempting had been so powerfully endorsed by Thoreau. I won't go into details, but those of you who are interested can look into the essay in which these details are spelled out. So determined was Mahatma Gandhi to spread his ideas that he even wrote a letter to Hitler. And here again, I will just read 2 or 3 sentences. Friends have been urging me to write to you for the sake of humanity, but I have resisted their request because of the feeling that any letter from me would be an impertinence. However, he wrote the letter, and at the end he said, anyway, I anticipate your forgiveness if I have erred in writing to you. I remain your sincere friend, M.K. Gandhi. Did this letter have any impact on Hitler? I'll tell you about the impact, which will amuse and also horrify you. A little later, the Prime Minister of England, Chamberlain, I think it was 1939, he visited Germany to meet Hitler. And in the course, the idea was to try and work out a peace and to save the world from total conflagration and war and so on. Already, of course, Europe, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, had already experienced the Great War, 1914 to 1918. And everyone dreaded a repetition of that terrible catastrophe that befell not just Europe, but the whole world. And so Chamberlain visited Germany in order to try to hammer out a peace treaty. And in the course of conversation, Chamberlain remarked about the trouble England was having in India because of Mahatma Gandhi's freedom struggle, and asked Hitler what should be the solution. And can you guess what Hitler's answer was? Kill Gandhi. 2 words. Kill Gandhi. So here you can see what kind of impact this letter would have had on Hitler. Anyway, these are all now moments in history which we can look back upon and deliberate upon, but nevertheless, they are woven into the fabric of our country, of our freedom struggle, and history always repeats itself, as we all know, so that the kind of events that took place in the past are never really dead. They are resurrected, they reappear, like the ghost of Hamlet's father, so I'm taking the liberty of referring, the ghost reappears. Tell by the sepulchre, when we saw thee quietly immured, had oped his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. What should we do? Hamlet asks the spirit of his father. So I come to the conclusion of my paper with the question, which I will try to answer briefly. What is it in a writer that makes his or her work memorable? Important question. Someone asked the poet W.H. Auden, what is poetry? And his answer was memorable speech. Memorable speech. And you can think of poems that all of you have studied. Will no one tell me what she sings? Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old, unhappy, far-off things and battles long ago, isn't it? Wordsworth's poem, The Solitary Reaper. Or the daffodils, I wandered lonely as a cloud, poem that all of you know. I would suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that there are 2 very important points in Thoreau's essay. The first was Thoreau's use of paradox. And as you all know, paradox means to make a statement that is in some sense self-oppositional, that goes against what you are saying. I'll give you just one example. He says,